Tuples again, but a shorter one this time because I missed out something in the last tutorial. I won't say missed out because it's very specific to the e-commerce application which we are building. So it's more like it'll be good that if we externalize all the dependencies which are injected to a view controller. Right now everything is in a view controller. So it's easier and beneficial if I'm showing it like in a way where I can externalize all these and then build this view without the help of a storyboard. Not just without the help of storyboard, but just like I don't, by default it loads the main storyboard. Instead of that, disable, and then we will build a view factory or something where we will instantiate this view controller, the tuples view controller, and load it from there, and also pass some of the dependencies. Like in our case it's a use case, which is a dependency which has to actually come from an external source like an interactor. So that's what I'm trying to do here. It's not like the whole in-depth coverage, let's say like a Viper architecture, but just a brief about how it's going to be like in the future. But then before that, it's easier for us if we are actually looking at it in that way initially itself. So let's get started. I'll show you how to do that. Let me go to the project, remove if you look at the main interface, it's already loading the main view controller. It's using the main storyboard which is there, that's being pointed here. If you remove that, it no more will auto load the main storyboard. Just to show that, if I run the app right now, it should ideally show a blank screen. It's showing something. Okay, maybe it had the earlier cache or something. It was loading that. Now if you run it again, it's not loading anything. So that's how it should ideally behave. Blank screen, black screen. So you don't have the main interface anymore there. So continuing with the creation of a factory, I'll call it view factory. It's nothing but something which creates your view controller and returns back, associating all the dependencies. View factory. Let's create a function there. Let's call it create root, which is actually creating my root view model, which in this case anyway it's a top tuples view controller. So it should accept a window, UI window. So let's just import UI kit. So this is something which is used by app delegate to load your root view controller. So it should ideally return a UI view controller. So that's how this function should work. Let's make it static as well, because I'm just expecting to create this and return it back. So what is my in the storyboard, for instantiating from storyboard, if I have to use a view controller, I need to associate an identifier to that. So let's use that. I'll just use the same name as the class, which is storyboard identifier. So you'll get to know why I'm doing this when I'm creating it over here in the view factory. So let's just create view controller. Before that, let me call the storyboard instance. Storyboard init with the name, which is main. Let's just keep it nil. And using that storyboard, let's create the view controller, which is my tuples view controller. I'll just call the storyboard.instantiate view controller using the identifiers. This is where we use that same identifier, which is I had given it as tuples view controller. Let me cast it as tuples view controller. So now the fun part begins, where I'll ask the use cases to be passed from here itself instead of directly calling it within the view controller where we were actually doing it. So before that, let me just go and grab all those dependencies which we had created. If you're not aware of whatever I am doing right now, you need to check back the previous tutorial, episode 2, where I am explaining about all the tuples, examples and implementations. So that's where you'll get to know what is happening here. So let me just grab all these type aliases first, where I had created all this. Wait a bit, let's superhero is required. I'll just keep that superhero part there, but these are the two dependencies which I was using externally. Let's just go back, create it somewhere here itself. So when you're actually creating specific modules, in this case I'm just calling it as view factory, but when you are actually creating specific modules, let's say, but in this case if it is specific to tuples, or if you are creating, let's say, an auth module which will have login functions and everything, you might have to create maybe, let's say, a login factory or something, or even a login module for that case. So I'm just keeping it closer to my view factory, these usages, and it should not give a problem right now. It should compile. Still there are some dependencies. It's returning, so let's also return that. View controller is finally what we will return here. So before that, we need to do some instantiations and pass it as dependencies. Dependency inject the use case. So even before that, let me just grab even the city info is something which we had created internal to this, but then even we can externalize this, keep it closer to the view factory. Let's maybe keep it within this just as a dependency which we will pass to the view controller. Next thing is the use cases. So this is what is a specific use case for this module. Let's say if you are creating a use case for this module which you are creating, I might just create it closer, those use cases closer to the view module which I am creating. So that's where I am keeping it right now. So this I am going to actually now instantiate just like we had it. So this is not changing, it's remaining the same, but use case creation is what will go outside right now. It is within view did load right now. We'll just move it outside. So that's my, maybe let's call, that's my use case, which is nothing but this specific thing, the type alias which we had created. So that's the dependency which we are passing. So this same use case is what I have as a dependency here. It's saying it's not, even you can compile it, will be okay. We have kept it within that, but when you want to actually, let's say if it's in a different framework or something, then you might have to import that specific framework and then use this specific use cases if you have to. But this is not Viper, this is just the beginning of how to pass your dependencies or inject your dependencies to different modules. This you should not consider as Viper, but it's just the beginning of how you are separating different concerns within different modules. So I have the use case now here, so I can just call the view controller, and within the view controller we already have this. Just go there, you have it here, the dependency. So we'll just inject that dependency as this, whatever we have created here. So it is going to give some error. We don't need this anymore. The static function anyway we have, that was just an example sake how to use it, but then we are actually going to do another kind of implementation here. So I'm just getting rid of the static function implementation. So getting this rid of this as well. So it will say that it's a single element tuple, so I'll have to create one more element which is empty. Even the same here, it's even here, it's a single tuple. Now it should be fine. It will give some error related to that static functions, so let's just comment that out. Even we can either comment it out. This is the static function which we created, which is now not anymore in use. We can just comment that out, or maybe keep it just for this sake. So I'm just keeping that, but it should not give a problem right now. Let's just go back and then start doing something here. So whatever I'm trying to do right now is to actually create something like a use case interactor and then pass one more function as externally through this use case, so that it will be clearer for you like how we are actually going to inject functions through tuples. So for that, let me again create something called as, I'm just calling it as interactor itself, because that's where when we actually end up creating a Viper architecture, you will find those use cases being embedded. So let me just call it as, still I'm stuck with this superhero thing, so let me just create a superhero interactor. And superhero interactor, and let me just create a function which is actually solving a use case. In this case, it is more like I'm summoning a superhero using some code. So let me just keep it as int. So you are asking some superhero to appear by passing some code, so which will actually return you first name, same thing like last time where we created first name, last name, and the title of the superhero. So just static. This is not actually a factory implementation or something. I'm just creating a dummy kind of a thing where if I pass an ID like 1, it'll return me maybe Bruce Banner, Hulk. Default, if my code is bad, when the stakes are high and you don't know the code, then you know whom to summon always. So that will be Tony Stark, Iron Man. Maybe you might disagree with me, but then I'm just keeping it as this, and maybe I'll just create one more. Steve Rogers. If I pass code like Steve 2, it should return me, this interactor should summon Steve Rogers in that case. So that's Captain America. So that's my function, which is nothing but solving a use case here. Pass a code, returns you the superhero kind of a thing. So this is just like not a real life scenario. Like it's a dummy use case I'm just creating for this sake. And let's just do some bit here. So this is my input int, and output should be in this format. So let's just create a use case there. So where I just say summon superhero over here. That's my type. Summon superhero. Pass an int, and it should return me the superhero. So that's my type here. It should start giving me errors now, because now it is expecting me to pass that specific use case. So summon superhero. Hope it's clear. It's pretty simple whatever I'm trying to do. So all that I'm doing here is creating an interactor, passing specific use case to this view controller through this use cases tuple. So before that, I need to create an instance of this, of the superhero interactor. Let me just make it as singleton. That's my singleton, and then I'll make it as private init as a practice. That's how you create a singleton, and then get that instance here, interactor is equal to superhero interactor.shared instance. I'll just use that here in this use case, pass that specific functions, summon superhero. So this is my closure function. I can call it as a closure function, and using this interactor I'm just passing it here. Hope it should not give me an error. So that's all fine now. So you can see that I have created an interactor, passed it as a dependency to this view controller. So if you have many number of use cases, and if you have to reuse specific functions, or if you want to reuse that interactor and use some of the functions which are there, this is the way you do it. You create a use case, get that instance of the interactor, and start passing that specific function. That's how you get in bring in that reusability part here. So this is pretty clear, hope so. I'm just continuing with creating that factory. That factory is done now. Let me just go to app delegate. This is where you instantiate your view controller. So let me just call that view factory dot ask for this. And for that I need to create a window. Window is UI window, passing a frame, which in this case is UI screen, I guess. Screen.main.bounds. That's how you create the window. Pass that window, and a couple of steps you need to do, where you need to set the root view controller as this view created, and then call window dot visible, make key and visible. So this is how you create it. So you created a window, created the view controller, set that view controller as the root view controller. That's it. And then I guess we are pretty much done. Let's just run this, and after that I'll call that function within that view controller to show you whether it works or not. Let's just run this. It's running, it's showing, but still we are not called that function. So let's just go back to the view controller. So whatever we externalized, we were having the use case instantiation here, we just moved it external. And let's just call now at the end somewhere here, let's just call Hulk first. So I have the use cases. So it's giving you that summon superhero function. All that you need to do is pass the parameter 1. This is my Hulk, so print Hulk dot title is summoned. Let's check that. Should ideally work, no problems there. See, Hulk is summoned now. Finally, let's just call Tony Stark, Iron Man, use case dot summon. I don't know the code, so maybe I'll just pass some code, and it should ideally call Iron Man, because I did it wrong. I don't know the code. I'm just calling whoever is available, and that is Iron Man. So he should be summoned now along with Hulk. Perfect, everything is working. So that's whole intention of this tutorial was to show you how to externalize these things and then pass the dependency as a use case from an external factory or something, and then instantiate the view controller, use it. So this is where reusability is coming into picture, where you have the interactors which will be carrying different use cases. You can pass specific use cases to specific modules in this way. So this is the beginning of understanding how this project is going to work, the e-commerce application, where we will have multiple interactors and we will have to maybe pass different use cases to specific modules. So this is how it works. So hope this was again informative, and this is actually concluding the tuples. I don't think I have missed anything more. So hope to see you in the next one, which will be, I guess, on RX Swift. So until then, bye.